In 1587, an isolated English settlement on the edge of the North American continent fell completely silent. By the time a supply ship finally returned, the 115 men, women, and children living there were gone. The only trace of their presence was the word Croatoan, carved into a wooden post. Queen Elizabeth I had authorized the mission for more than just settlement. She needed a strategic military harbor where English privateers could intercept Spanish treasure fleets sailing north from the Caribbean. This was the second attempt to hold the island. In 1585, a military expedition under Ralph Lane built a fort here, but the mission collapsed into starvation and conflict. Before fleeing back to England, Lane's men beheaded the local Algonquian chief, Wingina. That violence dictated how local tribes responded to the English. Montejo, from the neighboring island of Croatoan, allied with the newcomers after traveling to London. Conversely, Wanchese, a Roanoke leader who had also seen England, viewed the colonizers as a lethal threat to his people's resources. The 1587 colonists were not arriving in a peaceful wilderness. They were stepping into a landscape already defined by a cycle of assassination and retaliatory war. This new expedition, led by John White, included farmers, women, and children. Their instructions from Sir Walter Raleigh were to avoid Roanoke entirely and establish a permanent agricultural community at the Chesapeake Bay. But the ship's pilot, Simon Fernandez, prioritized his own privateering interests. Claiming it was too late in the summer to sail further, Fernandez forced the colonists off the ship at the old Roanoke fort and abandoned them. The settlers found the garrison razed and discovered the bones of an English soldier in the dirt. Within days, the Roanoke tribe killed a colonist named George Howe while he was out gathering craps. Despite the danger, the group attempted to establish a sense of order. Montejo was formally baptized and named Lord of Roanoke, and Governor White's daughter gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. Joy was short-lived. Arriving too late to plant crops, and with the local tribes refusing to trade, the colony faced a winter of starvation. They convinced Governor White to sail back to England immediately to secure emergency supplies. As White's ship disappeared over the horizon, the settlers were left in a precarious state, waiting for a rescue that would be delayed by forces an ocean away. White returned to England just as the Spanish Armada approached the coast. Queen Elizabeth grounded every seaworthy vessel for the war effort, trapping White in port for 3 years while his family waited on Roanoke. While the war raged in Europe, the colonists on the island were facing a different kind of environmental pressure, now revealed through modern climatological data. This chart shows tree ring data used to measure historical rainfall in the region. The sharp dip highlighted here corresponds exactly to the years the colonists were left on the island. They had arrived during the most severe regional drought in 8 centuries. With the Algonquians themselves lacking surplus food, the settlement became unsustainable. The climate forced a choice: stay in the fort and starve, or abandon the static post to find resources elsewhere. In August 1590, White finally returned. His crew anchored near the island and sounded a trumpet, calling out to the woods in English, but they received no reply. White found the houses had been carefully dismantled, not burned or destroyed. A new, high palisade of trees had been built around the site, and heavy items like iron fowlers and lead were left scattered and overgrown with weeds. White found 2 messages. C-R-O was carved into a tree, and on a palisade post someone had graven Croatoan. They previously agreed on a token. If forced to leave in distress, they would carve a cross above their destination. White found no such mark. The dismantled houses and the lack of a distress symbol suggest a methodical, organized evacuation rather than a sudden massacre. Theories of a Spanish attack or total annihilation by disease remain popular, but they lack physical evidence. A complete wipeout of over 100 people would have left mass graves, which have never been located on Roanoke. Instead, researchers turned to John White's map, La Virginia Parse, produced during the early expeditions. In 2012, X-ray analysis revealed a hidden paper patch covering a fort symbol. It was exactly 50 miles inland from Roanoke, at the head of the Albemarle Sound. Excavations at this location, known as Site X, uncovered fragments of Surrey, Hampshire borderware, a type of English ceramic used during the exact period the colonists were in America. These artifacts place English activity exactly where White's map indicated a hidden fort. This evidence points to a methodical move to the interior, fulfilling the relocation plans White recorded in his journal 3 years earlier. The move inland likely only accounted for a portion of the group. The Croatoan carving suggested that others traveled south to join Monteo's tribe on Hatteras Island. Recent work by the First Colony Foundation has focused on the Elizabethan gardens in Monteo, searching for the indigenous village of Roanoke that hosted the first explorers. Researchers uncovered a ring of English-drawn copper wire found in the same soil layer as 16th-century Algonquian cooking pottery. This specific type of rounded copper was an English trade item, not an indigenous technology. The presence of these domestic items suggests that the colonists did not vanish. They likely fractured into smaller groups and assimilated into local indigenous communities to survive the drought. The myth of the lost colony persists because a ghost story is simpler than the complex reality of citizens choosing to join a different society. More than 4 centuries later, the fate of the Lost Colony of Roanoke remains one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. What do you think happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke?